You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
In the international edition of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. We have kicked off the month of September. The final weeks of the minor league season are coming at us. Tyler Vaughn in Naha, Okinawa, Japan. Sam Dykstra in New York City at MLB HQ. And rocking the Support Local Baseball shirt from Old Fort Baseball Company today. Heck yeah, Sam. How are you?
I'm good, Tyler. I feel like you normally talk about my fashion choices for this show. I'm going to talk about yours currently. When we signed on to this Zoom, it was very dark, and you were wearing a sleeveless T-shirt right now. It just felt very threatening. Especially since you said this does like an international flavor.
It was like if there was going to be a mob hit over Zoom, it would have been on this call. It was like a dark, like I was, the lighting in this room. There's like a dimmer, and it's we're recording this a little inside baseball, if you will. It's 10:20 p.m. My time on Thursday, September 4th. Your time, it is 9:20 a.m. on the same day. I got a broadcast. My first broadcast of this trip is coming up in just over 12 hours. So it's kind of like winding down, getting ready to wrap up the day. And then when the Zoom window opened, I was like, this looks terrifying. This looks either menacing, or it looks like like I've been abducted by aliens and they're sending you a ransom video. Something strange.
The only thing I'll say about that is that I enjoy seeing your friendly face. So the fact that it was just dark, I was like, oh boy, Tyler's going through it right now. This is going to be a different energy on the show this week. But then you brightened up. The room brightened up. Your face brightened up. The room brightened up.
I turned on a different light, and the room brightened up. It is, this is a very random reference, but the something corporate song Constantine, in which there's the line, I always check the clock when it's 11:11 and you want to talk. There's a clock in my room, and since I'm in Asia, a lot of places around the world use 24-hour time instead of using midnight through 12, and then you go back to 1 o'clock and through 12 again. So the clock here currently says it's 22:22. That's wild.
Ooh,
man. Weird, wild stuff. It is. It's
double 11:11. The double the wishes, maybe. I don't know.
Man, I hope that's a good sign for something. Well, hey, we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. I missed last week. I'm sure folks were delighted, but you're stuck with me again, and we're back. It's me and my good buddy Sammy. And what's going on, man? How's things?
Things are good. I mean, we're kind of winding down the minor league season, quite literally. I mean, normally we're used to, at least in years past, those of us who have been doing this for a while, the fact that Labor Day used to signal the end of the minor league season. Well, we had Labor Day on Monday, and the minor league season marches on. We finish up with single A and high A ball this week. Double A ball has a week and a half left now, and then Triple A has 2.5 weeks left. So we still have that staggered ending. So it's still, just when you think like, oh, well, we're just coming up on the end of it. It's like, no, there's still a while to go. And then there's still postseason baseball. And we'll talk about that in a minute, starting in the single A and high A leagues. Some of the leagues have already crowned their champions, including the Dominican Summer League. So yeah, we're in that weird time where it's like, oh, is it postseason baseball? It is for some people. It's not for others. Other teams are still, making moves and trying to get to their postseason spots. And we're also in that land now where there have been a lot of top 100 promotions in the last week. Harry Ford, speaking of international baseball, Tyler, Harry Ford called up by the Mariners. Carter Jensen called up by the Royals, Kansas City native. We talked about it last week very briefly that Jonah Tong was getting called up. And then right after that, Peyton Tolley got called up by the Boston Red Sox and had a fantastic debut for them. So we're in that time now where teams are like considering, hey, if you're one of our, we're in September roster expansion, which is 28 guys now, right? Not 26, or not your entire 40 man like it used to
Right.
be. But still, there's a little extra space there. If we think you're one of our 28 best players, let's bring you up. Even if you're a Harry Ford and you're like, we have the best catcher in the world in Cal Raleigh, and you're a catcher. At least you're around. At least you're getting that exposure, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a fun time, even though it feels like things are winding down. There are still ways baseball can keep us excited in the closing weeks.
As it always does. And we are stoked to have you all along on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. You can get in touch with us, podcast at milb.com. A little bit different podcast setup this week. We'll hear from Benjamin Hill coming up here a little while later on. But you got me and Sam to kick things off on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. And Sam, I'm over here watching a whole bunch of guys who I feel like you will be writing about like certainly within the next year for a lot of draft prospects, but maybe even just within the next few months as the things get ramped up for the final season of a lot of these players' high school careers here.
Yeah, and some of the names that people might recognize, like Grady Emerson, who I got to see in the high school home run derby.
I guess I should I should say what I'm doing. I'm here for the U18 Baseball World Cup. I don't think I even pointed out exactly what it is. But the U18 Baseball World Cup
Yeah,
kicks off tomorrow here in Okinawa. So it's 16, 17, 18-year-olds. We got 12 countries here. USA Baseball looking to return to the top of the heap after being dethroned by Japan 2 years ago. The U.S. did not medal 2 years ago, which was a shocker. They had won 5 straight U18 Baseball World Cups, but a really, really talented USA Baseball squad.
yeah, I was mentioning Grady Emerson before. Another name people might recognize is Jacob Lombard, who is George Lombard Sr.'s son and George Lombard Jr.'s brother. And I remember talking to George Lombard Jr. at the All-Star game ahead of the Futures game and just being like, so what scouting report can you give me on your brother? And he said, well, he's more advanced than I was at that age.
I
And
remember him
now,
saying that to us when we were in Somerset. We asked him about his brother, and he's
yes,
like, "Man, my brother's the one."
yeah, yeah. So that's a very tight-knit family. It's a very baseball forward family. That's one thing that George Jr. was telling us is that they always talk. Like the
Yeah, there's
mom of the
a
family is
group
always
text, and
making
they're
sure.
they're always texting about baseball.
Yeah, they're always checking in with each other. It's not just like, oh, I know you guys are all spread out. It's like, no, 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 we are doing this as a family. So it's really cool that now that takes over to Japan, and I'm sure George Jr. and George Sr. will be following Jacob very closely. But Tyler, as you're over there, maybe not just even the U.S. I mean, what are you watching for closely? Like I wrote up somebody this week who pitched for Chinese Taipei not long ago, and use the international side to prove. I think it was the U23 World Cup to prove that he was ready to come stateside. I mean, it's not just the Americans who we could see someday playing in the minor leagues.
Yeah, there are a lot of guys throughout these rosters who are really, really exciting young talents. USA Baseball obviously leads the way. You mentioned George Lombard, you mentioned Grady Emerson. The United States will get things started tomorrow, depending on when you folks are tuned in. Maybe today, may have been yesterday. But Friday here in Okinawa, they'll play Panama in their opener, and they're going to throw Gio Rojas, left-hander from Parkland, Florida, from Stoneman Douglas High School, who touches 96. He is a top-ranked, right now, by all accounts, pretty much the top-ranked prep pitching prospect in baseball going into 2026. But just a really polished guy. 6'4", 190 pounds, and the guy who gets the start in game one, and that really I feel like says a lot. If you're going to get the nod in game one, the manager of this USA Baseball squad this year is Rick Ankiel, Rick Ankiel was a member of the coaching staff for the national team development series that helped identify and choose this squad. It's Rick Eckstein who is the manager of this team, and David Eckstein is on the staff. Brad Penny is the pitching coach for this team, so big league experience all over the place. But for somebody like Gio Rojas to get the start in game one, that's a guy who you can tell, oh, he's got it. Gio Rojas was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Florida last year. He's Baseball America's Prep Pitcher of the Year, and played, in a whole bunch of showcase events. He was in the All-American Classic, the East-West game earlier this year. We've, got a lot of guys who were in the high school All-American game, guys who are in the high school home run derby. They probably right now are the biggest headliners. But Jonathan Mayo, our colleague at MLB Pipeline, put out a story after the MLB draft in July, in which he ranked what he projected as an early 2026 mock draft. And three of the top five guys in that draft projection for 2026 are guys who are on this USA Baseball roster. And those three who we mentioned, he's got Jacob Lombard going number 2 overall to Atlanta. And then he's got Grady Emerson going number 4 overall to the Pirates. And tomorrow starter Gio Rojas going 5th overall to the Orioles. But there are a lot of other guys on this roster who are really, really good, and who are going to make a big impact for the United States. One name that I want to call out for people who are around our age is the outfielder slash catcher on this roster, Javorsky Lane Jr. If you are somebody who is around my age, even around Sam's age, and you remember the Lane train of Texas A&M fame and an NFL career, a former Lufkin High School Panther. He went to high school with my wife, as wild as that is. Javorsky Lane's son, an extremely talented and fun player to watch. He's on this squad, but there are a lot of guys who you were gonna, find popping up on prospect lists. Skip Schumacher's son is on this team. Brody Schumacher is one of the guys who, we'll probably see a lot over the next few days. Jared Grindlinger, Cole Kaniger. There are just so many names that you might not know right now, but by this time next year, you're gonna know. Outside of USA Baseball, this is going to be a really interesting event this year because the U18 Baseball World Cup, for my money, it's my favorite international event outside of the World Baseball Classic that I get to do because everything just feels like it's at the perfect level. These guys are at an age where they really grasp and understand what it means to be playing for their countries, to have the honor of being in this position, but they're also extremely talented and developed as ball players. They play a really clean, high level brand of baseball, and the passion for this event is amazing. Um, I love U18s. The most interesting parts of this event in 2025, I think, are going to come from a couple of contenders from Asia. Japan, the reigning world champs at this level, and Chinese Taipei, because their teams are selected very differently from how USA Baseball does it. USA Baseball had an initial training camp back, I believe, in late June or early July, in which they had about 80 players. They whittled that down to just over 40 for about a month later for a secondary camp. And from that, they picked the 20-man roster to come here to Okinawa. For Chinese Taipei in Japan, and to a lesser extent, Korea, they identified their teams in Japan's case through the Koshien tournament. And if you're not familiar with Koshien, it's if you think of March Madness on steroids and it's all high school baseball instead of college basketball, that's Koshien. The winning manager of these big national tournaments, Japan, Chinese Taipei, they effectively get to select their teams based on the performances in these national tournaments. Both of those tournaments had big upset winners. In Taiwan, an upset winner, and in Japan, a school actually from Okinawa Shogaku High School, won Koshien. They're only the second school ever to win Koshien from Okinawa. And with that, there's a lot of, especially in the case of Chinese Taipei, the squad that represents Taiwan, there is a lot of talent that is at home in Taiwan, did not make this national team because the team that won the national tournament, their head coach is the manager of this Chinese Taipei squad, got to choose a lot of his guys, wanted to go with the guys who, were playing their best ball as of the last few weeks. So we have seen, some really, really good talent. Yumin Lin, who pitched in the 2019 U18 Baseball World Cup. Roki Sasaki was on Japan's team in 2019 as well. Shohei Ohtani played in this event a long time ago. And that's just guys who were on the pitching side. Francisco Lindor played in this event for Puerto Rico when he was a young guy. So there are so many names that you will get to know who maybe as of right now are, headed for pro ball in Japan or in Korea or in Taiwan or wherever, but may find their way to the major leagues. And of course, in the case of USA Baseball, guys who are going to be really high draft selections coming up real soon. But there's going to be a lot of fun talent to watch here.
Yeah, and I love that it is so different. The fact that you brought that up, it is not just all-star teams all over the place.
Yeah,
It's a little different. It makes it more fun, and I think we're just coming off the Little League World Series, right? And I get it.
right.
It's fun to see kids that age participate in a. You're not, these are guys who are like right on the cusp, and I think it has that still same flavor. These guys are just as excited. I've talked to numerous players. Tyler, you've been around that tournament forever. Who it's maybe some of their favorite baseball memories are
Yeah,
going to these tournaments and competing for USA. Some of these guys, like Grady Emerson, have been on Team USA's before. Others haven't. Others may never again. Or the next chance they have is in the World Baseball Classic. So they really take that up, and they know also. Let's not discount this either. That this is another showcase circuit.
yeah.
This is something that gets brought up in their draft profiles. If you go 5 for 16 over there with 2 homers and 2 doubles, people are gonna be talking about that.
Yeah.
This is another opportunity to show that you care about it, that you have the skills, and potentially, like you said, after USA kind of disappointed last time this tournament happened, make sure that you are the one to turn that around. That's going to go a long way. Not only to start your career, but like where you go in the draft and how you're talked about in the minor leagues.
It's interesting. You made a good point. This is such a crucial stage in the baseball careers for these guys because they are on the doorstep. Whether it's being a first round pick, being somebody who's committed to a big time college program. Grady Emerson is committed to go play his college ball at Texas. Gio Rojas is committed to Miami. Everybody has a big time commitment. They are on the doorstep of these big next things in their baseball lives. And you may never play on a team that is as talented for its level as the team that you're on right now. And yeah, like you said, it might not ever happen again. And so it's really cool that way. And it just results in really fun baseball. And to see how these guys get a chance to experience. We're playing at a stadium here in Okinawa that's a spring training stadium for Nippon professional baseball teams, the big leagues here in Japan. 13,000 seat stadium. It is going to be, especially for the Japan games, it is going to be packed. It is going to be loud. Things that these guys have not really seen in their careers yet, they'll get a chance to experience. And it's a lot of fun, and you get some really good stories. There's a guy on this USA baseball squad, and CJ Sampson, who was twice cut from national teams and finally gets to make it with this U18 squad. Mentioning Grady Emerson. Grady Emerson actually set a USA baseball record by making 4 straight national teams. He's a 2-time U15 representative and a 2-time U18 representative. So there are just some really, really cool storylines at play with all this as well. So we got some fun stuff over the next 10 days here in Okinawa with the World Baseball Softball Confederation. You can follow along at WBSC.org. You can get information on how to watch games and catch all of it. And you'll have to listen to me. You'll have to continue listening to me spouting my nonsense, doing in-depth uniform analysis. You know how it goes. But we'll have some
If
fun
you
here.
enjoy this show each week, you can get more of it
You
at
can get it more.
WBS.
Do you need more? All right, Sam. Well, we go from guys who are going to be in Pro Ball coming up here real soon to the guys who are in Pro Ball currently. And coming to the end of the 2025 season, low A and high A seasons wrapping up. And Sam Dykstra has some yearly accolades to hand out to some of his favorite talents from low A and high A. Take it away, my good man.
Yeah. So the way I wanted to do this is, instead of going by each league, we're going to go level by level, and we're just going to name who I think would be the hitter of the year and the pitcher of the year in each level. This is not like prospect status. We're not looking for who was the top prospect to play in that level. And in some cases, I'll throw this name out there and say, spoiler, he's not my pick for either league. Connor Griffin, who's our number one overall prospect, spent a good amount of the time in single A and high A. Problem is, he split his time between those spots, and now he's in double A Altoona. So if you're looking to explain the entire single A or high A seasons as a whole this year, Connor Griffin tells part of the story. He doesn't tell the full story. So when I'm looking at that, trying to decide who the hitter and pitcher of the year is at the level, I'm trying to take amount of playing time into account here. I think I was cutting it off at about 250 plate appearances in each league or at each level, and then around 70 innings pitched. So that's basically the minimum playing time that I'm looking at when I pick these awards. So let's start at single A. We'll start at the lowest full season level of minor league baseball. My hitter of the year in single A, I'm going to go with Alfredo Duno of the Cincinnati Reds organization. He's actually repeating single A Daytona this season, but I'm not going to hold that against him. He had some injuries last year, whatever. He's only in his age 19 season this year. 482 plate appearances with single A Daytona, 281 average, 423 on base percentage, 501 slug. That's good for a 159 WRC plus, which was second highest at the level. The other thing that stands out to me is he hit 16 homers, which is second most among single A batters with at least 250 plate appearances, 32 doubles on top of that. So he had 50 total extra base hits in 110 games. If you look at Alfredo Duno, and I know a lot of people got to look at him during the Futures game and specifically in BP, that is a big dude. He is an absolute masher. And that's one reason why we put him onto the top 100 recently. He's a little bit more athletic than you would expect for somebody that size. He does have 5 steals, was thrown out 4 times, so don't expect him to be a huge stolen base threat moving forward. But the fact that he's already showing this pop at age 19 at single A, I kind of wish he would get some time at high A Dayton before the year is out, but we're only have, by the time this podcast comes out, 3 days left in the season. So it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But Alfredo Duno walked more than he struck out to. I should throw that out there. 91 walks, only 89 strikeouts. Everything you're looking for here. Power, discipline, high OBP, all of that. So Alfredo Duno is my pick for single A hitter of the year. On the pitching side, this one was a close call for me because there are a couple really good candidates. But I'm going to go with David Shields, who had a 2.01 ERA in 71 2/3 innings for single A Columbia. He struck out 28.3% of his batters faced, walked only 5.2%, had a 1.02 whip. Just really, really, really good number. I mean, he's one of the people I get asked about the most because I have the Royals system, and it's like, how do you slot a guy in? We were getting excited before about Duno being his age 19 season. This is the age 18 season for David Shields. 81 strikeouts, only 15 walks in 71 2/3 innings while maintaining that 2.01 ERA. And it's interesting because the Royals typically slow roll their pitchers. They like to, especially ones coming out of high school, they like to, keep them back in extended spring training for a while. Don't rush them out if they don't need to. And yet Shields kind of broke through in a very similar way to Kendry Churio, who's arguably an even better prospect in his age 17 season, also reached Columbia only months after signing internationally in January. Both of those guys give this Royals pitching pipeline 2 stars, 2 potential top 100 guys, maybe as early as next year. We'll see how things go. I still have some questions about how the overall velocity is going to go for David Shields. It's not exactly, this isn't a guy who's throwing 96, 97 right now, but he is still so young. And the fact that the pitchability is really, really exciting and enticing. So David Shields would be my pick for single A. One name I'll just shout out real quick because he came very close is Caden Scarborough of the Texas Rangers organization at 2.88 ERA in 75 innings. He struck out 32.3% of his batters faced, which was tops for the level, or second for the level, I should say, just behind Braden Davis, who's 33.9%. Another guy with a sub-1 whip. Caden Scarborough doing everything you would hope for. It's his age 20 season. I'm not discounting that. I'm not saying like, oh, he's 2 years older, that's why he didn't get it. The ERA is just a little bit higher than David Shields, but both of those guys deserve mention.
All right, Sam, that's low A. High A wrapping up as well. What do you got in high A for us?
Yeah, so high A, it's interesting because there's a couple different like environments in high A. Right, you go from like Asheville, which is extremely hitter friendly, to Brooklyn, which is extremely pitcher friendly. And there are some places like Everett in the Northwest League that are extremely hitter friendly. How do you balance all of that? It's difficult, and even the guy I'm picking plays in a hitter friendly ballpark in Greensboro, but I'm still going to go with him. And again, it's not Connor Griffin; it's Esmeralyn Valdez, somebody who hit 303 with a 385 OBP, 592 slugging percentage. That's highest at high A among batters with at least 250 plate appearances, beating out even top 100 prospect Lazaro Montez, who's at 572. Valdez also had the highest OPS at 977, the highest WRC plus at 176, and he also hit 20 homers in only 72 games with high A Greensboro, added 18 doubles and a triple. Only two stolen bases. That's not his game. But I think he dominated this level so much in just a short window that there are some other guys who play in some less hitter friendly ballparks to consider, like Carson Benj, who plays in Brooklyn, like I was talking about before. He had a 169 WRC plus. Jacob Reimer was at 164. Isaac Pacheco, 161. Max Clark at 156. Some of these are bigger names than Esmeralyn Valdez, who I believe is number 15 on our Pirates list. But again, I'm not taking into account here just prospect status. It's more about who performed best and the fact that he slugged as well as he did. Again, 592, nobody else above 572, an OPS of 977, nobody else above 959 with at least 250 plate appearances. That's enough to take the cake for me on the hitting side. Now we go to the pitching side, and this is a guy who, honestly, I do the D-backs rankings, and this is somebody who I've been following him all year long, and he was drafted out of college last year, and it's his age 22 season, and he had a really strong year at High A Hillsborough, and I kept thinking like he's got to be promoted at some point. Like this is too dominant of a run. He was recently promoted. He's continued to dominate at Double A Amarillo. Speaking of a hitter-friendly ballpark, so he's carried that with him. But my pick is Daniel Egan of the Arizona Diamondbacks, a 2.49 ERA for High A Hillsborough. He struck out 34.1% of his batters faced. That's more than a third. Walked 10.6, so the walks kind of held him back there. Maybe that's something they were looking for. It held batters to a 183 average against. His whip was 1.06. Daniel Egan, just a strikeout machine, like I was saying, 132 strikeouts in only 97 and two-thirds innings. That 132 is tied for second most in all of high A. He was the only guy in that group of four with 132 more strikeouts with an ERA below 3.9, and his was 2.49. So it's really good breaking stuff. When I talked to the Diamondbacks for our midseason update, they were saying they believe his changeup has come along well enough, and that's helped the strikeout rate as well. So at least it's giving batters something other to think about than the curveball or slider. And then he's got a decent fastball, but like it's mostly the breaking stuff that's making this happen. And the fact that he's carried it to Double A so far is certainly intriguing. But based off the high A season he had, he would be my pick for pitcher of the year at that level.
All right, Sam, we're coming down the last couple weeks in Double A, in Triple A. Any storylines that are standing out right now? Just some quick hits for fans who were following along. Texas League and the Eastern League and the Southern League and the International League and the PCL.
Yeah, I mean Connor Griffin being a Double A is certainly intriguing. And then you look at, for me, it's who could still make that jump to the major leagues. We just had Trey Savage pitch in relief this week for AAA Buffalo. And I asked around about that. We were trying to figure out like, oh, should we put him on the free Mill TV game of the day? And I asked, when is he starting this week? And they're like, well, he's not starting this week. And I was like, what's up with that? And they're like, well, we're switching roles. I was like, okay, is this a piggyback situation or is this a short relief situation? I was told short relief. He pitched 3 innings and it was a scheduled day for him to pitch. I'll leave that up to you to decide if you consider that a piggyback. I think it's smaller than a piggyback, what a phrase that is. But But the fact that the Blue Jays are at least thinking about bringing up Trey Savage right now as they really go for it in the American League, trying to hold off the Yankees and the Red Sox in the AL East. With that stuff, with that delivery, I would love to see it in the bullpen. It's going to be some funk. You're going to have all three of those pitches, that fastball, that slider, that splitter, all move arm side, which is going to look so weird. And the way he rocks back and throws over the top, you think of Jonah Tong throwing over the top and makes you think of Tim Lincecum. I don't think Savage has a comp. I've never seen anybody throw this way and have everything move to the right, to his right, that is. I think it's just going to befuddle major league hitters in a way that, especially in shorter stints, could really work for Toronto. So keep an eye out, see if he gets promoted in the final weeks and if they use him out of the bullpen. But moving away from the upper levels and back to the lower levels real quick. I mean, the postseason begins next week, right? For high A and single A. At high A, we only have one series set so far, and it's in the Northwest League between Everett and Eugene. In the South Atlantic League, Brooklyn and Bowling Green are still waiting for their opponents. Cedar Rapids and West Michigan is still waiting for their opponents. Those games will start next Tuesday. So keep an eye out on the standings, see how things are going in those leagues. And then single A is mostly set. We have opening rounds in the Florida State League. Will be St. Lucie versus Daytona. Maybe that's a reason why Alfredo Duno is still with the Tortugas. Get some meaningful games down the stretch, playing the postseason. That's kind of a reward for his strong year. Lakeland is waiting for its opponent on the other side of the FSL. And then in the Carolina League, Columbia versus Myrtle Beach is set. Lynchburg is waiting for its opponent on the other side of the Carolina League. And the California League is absolutely set. We know who that's going to be. It's Rancho Cucamonga versus Inland Empire and San Jose versus Fresno. By the time we talk next week, we'll probably have some of those series already done. And we'll be talking about the finals. And that's the thing about minor league postseasons now. They move so quick. Like we're going to be crowning champions before we can even preview a full postseason in some cases. So we'll check back in with that next week and see where things stand. But those are at least the playoff teams that have clinched so far, and there's still some drama still to come over the weekend.
Coming up, Benjamin Hill stops by for this week's episode of the show before the show.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
It is time for this week's edition of the Ben's Biz Banter, presented by Circle K, the official convenience store of minor league baseball. And with that, we welcome in Benjamin Hill, fresh back from a short jaunt on the road. What's going on, Ben?
Doing well. We're talking here today on whatever day it is, Thursday. It's the first day of school in New York City, so dropped off my son Harry at his first day of pre-K, and I'm feeling just good in general. I think it's time for those back to school vibes, not just for the kids themselves, but for us adults too, getting into new routines, saying goodbye to the chaos of the summer. Got the Eagles playing tonight against the Dallas Cowboys. So it's a time of transition, but we're here not to talk about baseball. In case you're new to this podcast, it's a minor league baseball podcast. No football talk.
To everything,
a little football.
Turn.
Exactly.
There is a
exactly.
season. All right, Ben. Well, you did. You headed back to your home state, Pennsylvania, and paid a visit to no longer an affiliated minor league baseball team, at least in terms of a parent club affiliation, but the Williamsport Crosscutters still doing the same work that we have known and loved from them for so long.
Yeah, this wasn't an official work journey. It wasn't part of my season travel schedule, so I won't be covering it in the same way as I cover some of my other stops, but it's hard for me when I'm at a ballpark to, find that line of being a fan versus being professionally. It gets blurry. And I just wanted to talk about this because I hadn't been to Williamsport since like the Little League Classic game in like 2018, maybe. that was Phillies Mets, but I always enjoyed going to see the Williamsport Crosscutters. They were in the New York Penn League up through 2019, draft leagues from 2021 on. Beautiful old ballpark, 100 years old, Bowman Field. I think now it's Journey Bank Ballpark at Bowman Field, something like that. But great old ballpark in a town I always enjoy visiting, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Williamsport has a section of town called Millionaires Row of these great old huge mansions, and Williamsport at one time had more millionaires per capita than any place in the United States, and that was based on the like the lumber industry and logging, hence the team name, Williamsport Crosscutters. But I just had a great night there. They're still drawing really well, doing well in the draft league. You know, the draft league has a unique setup in that it's amateur for the first half of the season, guys who are aspiring to get drafted, and then professional, more like a weird form of indie ball in the second half of the season where the players are then getting paid. It's after the draft. So these guys might be returning to the team or coming onto the team in the second half, you know, maybe a little disappointed because I think every player thinks they're going to get drafted, wants to get drafted. So it's a unique setup, and it was just great to be there. And I could go on about it, but I just want to, you know, we haven't had the context to talk as much about, you know, draft league and some of these independent and summer collegiate, but there's still a lot of baseball out there. Some of them former minor league teams, and Crosscutters, great place to visit. And I just felt good. And it was nice to be a fan too. I was, of course, taking pictures and feeling semi-professional, and but also just to sit there, be with my family, experience the energy through my 4-year-old son Harry. Towards the end of the game, we were down near the dugout in a seating area, 4 tops, and a player on the Crosscutters who were playing as the Potato Capers. And you guys know that story, I'm sure. But the Crosscutters have an alternate identity, the Potato Capers, which is a reference to a 1987 game where a catcher named Dave Bresnahan shaved a potato into the shape of a baseball. Then when a runner was on third, threw the potato into the outfield intentionally. The runner from third broke for home, and then Dave Bresnahan, the catcher, is like psych and has the real ball in his glove. He got kicked out of the game, released by the Phillies. I think it was the Phillies, but released by his parent club and never played again. But I think he kind of knew the writing on the wall. So how great is it that nearly 40 years later, you've got an alternate identity based around a prank you pulled at a minor league game in 1987. So they played as the Potato Capers, but a guy on the Potato Capers / Crosscutters gave my son a ball, and I looked up his number on the roster. Christian Reyes. I'd have to look more into that guy, but I think that's important, you know, when kids get balls to say, who is this player? And for kids, as you get older, pro tip, have a copy of the roster with you, because all these kids are like, hey, ball,
Yeah.
number 12. Any kid who knows a guy's name is like head and shoulders above the competition.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my advice to you, is like, as any kids listening to this want to get balls at games, know the players and ask them by their name politely. It's so easy. I'm not saying I knew Christian Reyes' name, but now I do. And thanks for giving my son a ball, Christian.
Young aspiring ball hawks. You have the leg up on the competition if you can get somebody's name. Well, that is cool stuff. A good stop in Williamsport. And Ben, we wanted to shout out a couple of minor league teams that are saying goodbye to their teams after a couple of minor league communities saying goodbye to their teams after 2025.
Yeah, these are issues we've obviously talked about on this podcast quite a bit over the last couple of years, but now it is real, for real. The final regular season games have been played at John Thurman Field, home of the Modesto Nuts, and at Five County Stadium, home of the Carolina Mudcats. Modesto is part of a large series of shifting California League moves. There'll be a new team in Ontario, California next year, and the Modesto Nuts are out of the picture. And that's a tough one to say goodbye to, because that ballpark is from 1955. Modesto has essentially had a team in the California League since the league's inception, like post-World War II, 1946. I think the state of the ballpark, it was time to say goodbye, but yeah, 70 years of history at that ballpark, that's a tough one to say no more. But like, there's always next chapters in baseball, and while it will not be an affiliated market anymore, I'd be curious to see what gets in that facility going forward, because you imagine it'll be something going forward. So I don't think Modesto will be completely without baseball, but in terms of being a California League team, Modesto and that league go hand in hand, and that is gone now. They're a Mariners affiliate. So technically, Modesto is moving to Inland Empire, and Inland Empire is moving to It gets confusing, but big picture, Modesto is now out of the California League, and Ontario, California coming in. And within the next couple months, we'll have a new team name announced for that franchise. So that'll be exciting to see. And I visited the Carolina Mudcats this year. We talked about them quite a bit. They have a chance of getting in the playoffs. They're a few games behind Fredericksburg right now and finishing up a season on the road in Fredericksburg. So they could rally, get in the playoffs, and play a handful more games at Five County Stadium. But they played their last regular season game, probably likely their last ever game at Five County Stadium in Zebulon, North Carolina. Big hulk of concrete. We're saying goodbye to the big hulks of concrete in minor league baseball because the Diamond in Richmond is another one. They're doing their final homestand next week before moving to the new ballpark right in the same area. But goodbye, Carolina Mudcats. They're moving to nearby Wilson next year and becoming the Warbirds. So the silver lining in that situation, of course, is that the team is still going to be operating in, roughly speaking, the same markets. So it's not going to create a major baseball void in the state of North Carolina, a state where there are no major baseball voids. There's a lot of baseball in the Carolinas, as we like to discuss on this show. But just wanted to give a proper final farewell acknowledgement to Modesto Nuts and Carolina Mudcats, the end of an era for those two franchises, and of course, two corresponding new ones coming next year.
All right, Ben, you have a new Crooked Numbers up. The month of August now in the rearview mirror. Crooked Numbers, one of our favorite things to discuss, one of my favorite things to read. Give us some of the Crooked Numbers highlights.
Yeah, this is coming out, we're talking Thursday morning, and this will be in my newsletter, Baseball Traveler, later today, and on MLB and MILB.com tomorrow. Some of these things I know we already talked about. Like we talked about that crazy play in Kannapolis with the one-handed swing. We got into that a couple of weeks ago, right? So let's do something new. How about this? We like scoregamis, scores that have never happened before. In the world of minor league baseball, it's basically impossible to tell like if a certain score has never happened before because records are very incomplete. But in the world of Major League Baseball, there has only been one 19-18 game ever, and it barely counts. It was like 1873. Like, was that even Major League Baseball? I always looked at Major League Baseball's the National League starting in 1876, and that's when Major League Baseball's history starts. Anyway, there was a game in the 1870s that was 19-18. I think it was like Brooklyn and Washington, D.C. I forget what their team names were then. And we had a 19-18 game in the minor leagues this year, this past month. So probably one of the just most truly crazy games. 19-18, Tri-City Dust Devils. They defeated the Eugene Emeralds. So it's hard to think of a crazier score than that. This game was tied 11-11 after 3 innings with, a lot of baseball left to play. Tri-City scored 2 in the 9th to tie the game at 14. They both scored 3 in the 10th to make it 17-17. Eugene scores a run in the top of the 11th to make it 18-17, but then in the bottom of the 11th, Juan Flores led off the bottom half with a 2-run homer to give the Dust Devils a 19-18 victory. So pure slugfest potential. I think that's one of the best games in the minor leagues this season. Also, we talked about the Greensboro Grasshoppers, who last month in July threw 2 perfect games in the span of 9 days, but they got a good offense too. They won a game by the score of 27-4. And not only did they score 27 runs, they did it by scoring in multiples of 3. 3 runs in the 2nd and 3rd innings, 6 runs in the 6th and 7th, and 9 runs in the 8th for a final score of 27-4.
There was a 3-inning span there where they scored 21 runs.
Yeah, it was like what, 6-6-9.
6-6-9.
Yeah, just
you just think like, well, at least it's a new inning. Maybe we're past this. Nope.
Yeah, just an insane. So 3-3-6-6-9 was how they got to 27 runs. An insane game there. There's only been one game in Major League history where a team hit 10 home runs in a game. The Toronto Blue Jays in 1987, September 14th against Baltimore. The Omaha Storm Chasers hit 10 in the game in the month of August. They hit 10 in their 23-7 win over Columbus on August 23rd. So I think that's of note too. 10 home runs in a game. I was looking around. I often don't have the time to go as deep as I want to with these. I couldn't find the last time a minor league team has hit 10 in a game. I'm sure it's happened. We had a game this year where there were 13 combined home runs in a game, and there was a 15 homer game in 2019, but those are combined. In terms of one team getting 10, couldn't find it, but further research is needed, as always in this. So I could go on and on, but check out Crooked Numbers. I believe that will be the penultimate Crooked Numbers of the season. I'm hoping to get enough from the month of September to do one more column, and imagine I will, with baseball still going on through the 7th in single A and high A, through the 14th in double A, through the 21st in triple A, and then the playoffs. So I should have enough for one more column, but we're getting towards the end of this. And I just used the word penultimate. Shout out to the Wichita Wind Surge, who last night tweeted that it was their anti-penultimate game of the season, which is like barely a word, but that means fifth to the last. Anti-penultimate. Fourth to the last, anti-penultimate. Third to the last, anti-penultimate. Second to last, penultimate.
I think that word is all prefixes.
Yeah, anti-penultimate. I looked it up, and it was kind of a nerdy gamer's word, like kind of used in like word game communities with like tongue in cheek, not really a real word, but I saw it in the minor league team's tweet today. And as we've talked about before, I take ultimate credit, so to speak, for any use of penultimate and its derivatives in the minor league baseball social media landscape. One of my pet causes, and every year when I see teams using it, I think, even if they don't know it, that's because of me. I've made my mark on this world.
Tyler, before we pivot here to our interview, I want to ask you, as the primary play-by-play broadcaster on this show, we've done some broadcasting stuff, but you're the king of this. What is the weirdest place in the minor leagues, or quite literally anywhere in the world, that you've ever broadcast a game from? Not like the stadium was weird, but literally the location, the place in the press box, or anywhere in the stadium that was the weirdest to you.
The weirdest by far for any sport was I used to travel with the University of Denver men's lacrosse program, and we played a game at St. John's University out there in Queens, and I broadcasted a game from a parking garage. They they that was where visiting broadcasts were. That was really something. As far as the weirdest setup goes, for a baseball game, there's a ballpark in Busan, South Korea, Gijang Hyundai Dream Park. It's a really cool little like 4 or 5 field complex where we had the U18 World Cup back in 2019, and there's a field that does not have like a traditional press box. It just has a ground level press box. And I got put into this is one of the very first WBSC events I did. It was the Women's Baseball World Cup in 2016. I got put on the ground floor, all the way around on the third base side, but not near a full window. I could only see like from basically shortstop to the right field line. I couldn't see anything else down the left field line. And then another one we had, this is 3 years ago, the U23 World Cup, I think. We had horrible rain. We were in Taiwan. We had horrible rain that we had 3 straight days of games rained out. And we ended up having to move some games down to a different city in Taiwan. I think this was in Kaohsiung, I want to say. Anyway, we went to a different ballpark. We had to take high-speed rail. Like we had to wake up at like 7 in the morning, hop on like a 2 hour high-speed rail trip to get down to this other ballpark. And when we get there, we're like walk into the stadium. We go up to the press box. The broadcast booth looks awesome. And somebody comes up and they're like, "Oh, you're not actually up here. We have you set up down in the right field corner." And we're like, "All right, well that's kind of weird, but I guess that'll work out." We couldn't even see the field. We were in the groundskeeper's tunnel, and we called the game off of video monitors because the production team, since they had to scramble with all of the rain, they couldn't get like all of their cabling and everything done. So we had to do the game like right outside of the production truck, just calling the game off of monitors. That was the weirdest. I've had a lot of weird spots, but that one might take the cake baseball wise.
Well, I mean, I'm sure every baseball broadcaster has their own story of the lengths that they have taken to bring the game to the good folks, the good listeners back at home. And Ben, why don't you introduce our guest for this week, who had a unique one down in the Florida State League?
Yeah, it's been a unique situation in Tampa, where the Tampa Tarpons, the FSL team there, are playing on essentially a like complex league field because the Tampa Rays are actually playing in Steinbrenner Field this whole season. So calling games for the Tampa Tarpons has been difficult, and a visiting broadcaster, Max Tanzer with the Bradenton Marauders, had a unique solution. So we're going to talk about how he decided to call a recent Tampa Tarpons game and talk to him about what's going on in the FSL in general. I feel like it's been a little while since we've detoured down there. So let's talk to Max. Today, right now, on the Show Before the Show podcast, we are joined by Max Tanzer, the voice of the Bradenton Marauders. Max, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
So there's a couple things we want to get into, but we're going to lead with kind of what led to this interview, because sometimes it's just a quirky thing you see on social media that grabs your attention. And you had a very unorthodox broadcast setup for a recent game in Tampa against the Tampa Tarpons. Tarpons? How do you say it?
Tarpons, Tampa Tarpons. I said Tarpoons when I was in Fort Myers the first 2 years when I wasn't familiar, so I learned the hard way. But Tarpons, yes, Tarpons.
Tampa Tarpons. It's a unique year in Tampa, and so you had a unique broadcast setup. So you're a broadcaster. I'll let you tell this tale or give us some context here, because it was definitely a unique image there on social media. So tell us how you broadcasted the game in Tampa.
Yeah, no, it was the coolest setup I probably had in terms of just how unique it was. So obviously with the damage to Tropicana Field last year and the roof unfortunately being damaged by the hurricane, the Rays had to relocate to George M. Steinbrenner Field. And so not only did the Yankees, of course, play their spring training there, but their single A team in the Florida State League, the Tampa Tarpons, would spend their regular season in the FSL there. But because the Rays are calling that home this year, their regular season was pushed onto the side field right outside the stadium. And so because of that, it doesn't have the normal ballpark facilities like a press box and big stands and so forth. And so they had us set up on the fourth level of like a staircase kind of outside of the ball, or on the outside of the concourse of George M. Steinbrenner Field. And so it was definitely a really unique perspective being that high up. And then some parts of the field were cut off a little bit, so I had to get really creative. But I just like a huge thank you to the Tarpons too, just because it is a wild situation for them, given that they had to relocate so close to the season and everything, and renovate this side field, which normally would be like a Florida Complex League backfield, right? Didn't have lights, and they needed to add a clubhouse and everything. And so big thank you to Jeremy Ventura and Anthony Sagristano too, who like were super helpful and open to it, because I'm one of just two who ended up broadcasting this year. And I think it was advantageous for me that it was late in the season because it gave them enough time to try and figure something out. Eli Fishman with Dunedin did it as well, but it was really fun. And on top of that, we were right across the street from Raymond James Stadium where the Buccaneers play. And I think it was on the Wednesday or Thursday night. USF was taking on Boise State. And so we had George M. Steinbrenner behind us, the side field nestled in between, and then just like fireworks shooting off every other inning whenever USF would score a touchdown. And so it was really cool. It was definitely the most unique setup I've had, but I'm super thankful I got the opportunity to do it. And now it's a great story to tell.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a strange situation. You're in one ballpark, looking down on another field. What was it like just with the audio and the acoustics and the surrounding atmosphere? Because so much of calling a game is being right in the thick of the action and the crowd noise and hearing what's going on the field. Was there that sense of remove, or did it kind of seem even more than it usually does? Like you're just talking to yourself and no one's around for miles? What was the feeling like in your so-called booth that game?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say it was so much like, especially in the first couple games of this series, there was so much to describe because it was on the radio side. So obviously the viewers don't have the luxury of watching on MLB TV or anything like that. And so like just trying to paint the picture for them on how like unique this is. Because like I'm thinking from a player's perspective, you're standing in the batter's box, you have Dale Mabry Highway like straight over the wall in left field. You have an NFL stadium right across the street over the batter's eye. Fireworks are shooting off, and then you have a big league stadium behind you. It's wild. And so definitely like because I was so far back, there wasn't much of a crowd ambiance. Like I couldn't even really hear the PA announcer or anything like that. But you could pick up some back cracks and so forth. And so I think it was making up for maybe the lack of that ambiance, like you mentioned, with narrative and painting the picture and just like expressing like how cool it is. It's I don't think I'll ever broadcast a game in a setting like that ever again. And then going to the Rays game on Monday, like knowing that there was a big league game there 2 days after we finished because our Sunday game was unfortunately canceled due to the Florida weather. Then going to a big league game and being like, wow, we were literally just playing on this side field yesterday, and now like it's the September, playoff run, and there's big league teams playing here. It was wild. It's really hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that you were able to provide that context of working with the Tarpons to make this work, because it initially looked like on social media that you took the initiative and you're just like, well, I'm broadcasting this game, so I'm marching up these steps. But they were the ones who pointed this out. How long did you have to reach out ahead of time to be like, hey, listen, I'm coming. I know a lot of road radio voices don't travel, but I am. How are we going to make this work? And how many different ideas were you guys batting around to make it work?
Yeah, so we kind of left it in the hands of them just because, it was obviously their setup and they have a lot of moving pieces. Like I said, like I think they called their like press box the chum bucket, which I love. Like there's all these puns with the Tarpons. Um, and so because of that, because that was so tight for like the ABS operator, the PA announcer and everything, we weren't going to be able to fit in there. And so they had brought up the idea because one other broadcaster had done it, Eli Fishman with Dunedin, and their setup with him was up on like the fourth level of that staircase. And I actually went to college with Eli, so I had the benefit from talking to him like right as I was going, like, what can I expect from this and everything. And he was just, describing the same thing I described to you guys, where it's like you'll probably never call a baseball game in a spot like this ever again. And so they basically set us up with a foldable table and then gave me a power extension that went into the concourse of George M. Steinbrenner. And then after that, it was as simple as setting up my normal radio setup that I have with my mixer and my crowd mic and my computers and so forth. So it was pretty normal, honestly. And it took me about 5, 10 minutes to set up every single day. The luckiest thing I had was that there was no rain, which seems impossible in Florida when you're talking about a stretch of 6 days. I had a bunch of like towels that I brought from just my bathroom here at home. And I was just ready to cover everything if it started raining just because we didn't have an overhang. And fortunately, not one drop when we were out there. So that was super clutch.
Yeah, one other pun I want to throw out there is that side field is called the tank now, right?
Yes, the tank, which I didn't know until I got there. They even have a sign for it and everything, and I love it. It's perfect. Like that's what I think is so fun about it is like they've really embraced it. You've been dealt like some very difficult cards that it was probably out of your control a little bit, just with obviously the Rays needing a home. And as someone who worked for the Rays last year, I'm super thankful that they have an opportunity to play in Tampa because I know that fan base is super passionate about, it being in that area still. And so like you're kind of just adjusting on the fly, and it seems like they've embraced it really well. And they did a good job. I thought it was a great setup given especially the circumstances.
And just to open it up more broadly, I mean, you mentioned you have some experience working with the Rays. You also have experience working with the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles a few years ago. So you've been around Florida baseball, but also specifically Florida State League. How do you kind of view that league as a whole and broadcasting in it? I think a lot of people know as it's a place where a lot of rules first come there. The pie slice, that's where you're going to find that. And like the only league really in affiliated ball that has that now. It's other experimental rules have come through the FSL, but it's also now a single A league. It used to be high A, now it's single A. A lot of super young guys coming through. What is it like then to broadcast that and try to balance the rules, explain the rules, but also explain some of these really exciting young prospects who are at the very beginning of their careers?
Definitely. I mean, starting with the rules side of things, I mean, one of the really special moments this year is we were one of the first leagues to test the automatic check swing challenge. And so that was implemented at the end of June. So I was like fairly familiar with the ABS challenges and so forth and the pie slice, like you mentioned. The check swing challenge was interesting though, because obviously it's still very much a work in progress. It's at the very beginning stages. So it's going to evolve still. But it was really cool because honestly, one of my favorite stories that I've even like told some friends from home is whenever I was told like whether a guy was checking his swing or not, they always said like if it's breaking the plane of the plate. And then when you look at what the ACS challenge is right now, it looks very hitter friendly. Like the graphic is, you can see from over the top bird's eye view of the plate, and then there's a checkered line that kind of comes at a diagonal angle on the front left corner of the plate. So it looks like a guy has to go 3/4 of the way around to be ruled a swing. And I remember talking to our coaching staff about it. Like that looks like it's incredibly hitter friendly. Like that's way past the plane of the plate. And he mentioned to me, which I never thought about, because guys stand at different depths in the batter's box. If a guy's in the front, like he could be just getting into his slot, and that could be breaking the plane of the plate. If you're stepping in the very back, then you have to go 3/4 of the way around. So they're toying with that angle of the 45 degrees, and it might get adjusted. I'm not sure how they feel about it, but it works very quickly. It seemed very effective. There hasn't been any drama on at least any of the games that I've called with it yet. So I think it's something that really could work. And that's really cool to like be at the front of it and kind of see it evolve, from scratch. And I know for a lot of the guys who've been in the Florida State League longer than me, they saw the beginning of the balls and strikes challenges, the beginning of the pie sliced and shift regulation. So that's really special. And I think it's one of my favorite parts of the job here. And then from the aspect of just the different parts of the FSL, I think what makes it really unique is that you're playing at these big league facilities. I remember when I was a number 2 with Fort Myers, I walked into the building for the first time and I was like, I heard all these stories about how like tough and a grind minor league baseball can be. And then I'm like walking into the Twin Spring training facilities and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful and it's big league quality. And so I think it's a really cool experience for a lot of the players to kind of experience a taste of what it would be like at the big league level one day, share the same clubhouse that the big leaguers use during spring training. Definitely adds a little like extra flavor to it, I feel like.
Max, the term live, work, play is used a lot now with in real estate and development projects, meaning somewhere where you can live, have your recreations, have your job nearby, or all in the same general area, live, work, play. You really have your version of live, work, play going here because you're talking to us live and direct in Pirate City, part of the larger Pirate Spring Training Complex in Bradenton. So for you, you're living around the ballpark, you're working for the ballpark, you're watching the team play. Seems about the most like immersive experience a young broadcaster could get in terms of not just being around the team every day, but just literally living within it.
100%. And it's probably the coolest part about this year for me. And I'm super thankful for the Pirates allowing me to live here and so forth. As you can see, I've got the Dick Stewart pictures behind me. Every room is themed with a former Pirate. I got the Andrew McCutcheon ones right across the hall. I'm jealous of that one because I grew up watching him. But yeah, I think it's really special, and not just to include like players and coaching staff members, but broadcaster as well. My director, who directs our games on MLB TV, is right next to me too. It's cool because it really allows me to put myself in the shoes of the players. Like I could never relate to what they go through physically and mentally having to play every single day. But for the aspect of being far from home and living on your own for a lot of them for the first time, it's a challenge. And I think as the broadcaster for them, I kind of look at myself as an ambassador, whether it's their family and friends listening or someone who's interested in a prospect. To tell their story the right way and have the right context. And it's so much more, especially at this level for guys drafted out of high school, or maybe they're an international signing and they're 18, 19 years old in the States for the first time. To be able to actually, in a way, like relate to them and understand what they're going through allows me to tell their story better and emphasize what they're doing on the field and how much more impressive that is because of everything else they're experiencing from behind the scenes. Because for a lot of them, I can only imagine, it's tough being that far from home. We have a player who's from Uganda, and I mean, that is like a 2-day flight. His name's David Matoma, and really hard fastball. It's touched 99 several times this year. And for him, he is so far away from his family. His main language isn't Spanish, and it is in English. And so he really doesn't have anyone who's in a similar spot to him. And so I can never relate to that, being in a country playing a sport and not being able to speak my main language to everyone. But I do know that it's a tough and a grind of an experience for him. And so just the ability to understand that and tell his story, and shine light on it, I think is my favorite part about it. And this definitely helps a lot.
Yeah, you just touched on players, and this is how I kind of want to end this, is that we're at an interesting time to be talking to you, because as we sit here now, our number one overall prospect at MLB Pipeline is Connor Griffin, who started the year in Bradenton. And our number 100 overall prospect is Edward Florentino, who just got added to the list, who's currently playing for the Marauders. What stood out to both of those, to you as you watch both of those guys, starting with Connor at the beginning of the year, and just the excitement, obviously a first round pick, and really popping off the way he did before moving on to Greensboro, and Florentino, who's been a consistent producer for them all season long.
100%. I mean, Connor is the absolute best, one of the best human beings I've ever met. The way that he handles himself, you think that you're talking to someone who's 26, 27 years old. I mean, he's incredibly professional. He was super easy to work with as well. I think that's what stood out to me immediately, because not only is he so talented and has a lot of buzz around him, but he himself was also far away from home at 18 years old to begin the season, turned 19 at the end of April. And the way that he was handling it all was just absolutely incredible. And I even remember telling him that, just like, it is so impressive the way that you carry yourself in interviews, the way that you carry yourself off the field. Everything I've heard from coaches and players is that he's just a wonderful teammate. And truthfully, at the end of the day, that he just loves the game. I heard a great story the other day, a really just a great note, that someone told me that no matter where he would be playing, whether it's single A, high A, double A, in a men's league, high school, whatever it is, he just loves baseball. It's everything to him. And I think you see that on the field when he plays. So obviously the tools pounce off the page, but like his makeup, I think is the most impressive part. And I'm sure that's a big reason why he's climbed as much as he has. On top of that, too, his family is great. You know, they all love baseball so much and are great supporters for him, too. It seems like he's got a great group of people around him, too. So he's amazing. And I'm so, so excited for him that he's getting all this love and he's risen as quickly as he has. Like, what, the first ever number one overall prospect as a debut player in professional baseball. I mean, that's incredible. So he's amazing. In regards to Florentino, he's a really cool story too. Very under the radar to start the year. And he's wired the same way. One of my favorite Florentino stories is we sat him down for an interview before a game on a Sunday, so early in the morning too, like probably 9 or 9:30. And we brought our clubhouse manager in to help translate for him. I had never spoken to Edward, so I figured that he'd be more comfortable speaking in Spanish through a translator because it's his first year in the States. And so I introduce him. I introduce our clubhouse manager who's translating, expecting that Edward's going to answer in Spanish. And he just took the steering wheel of the entire interview and answered every question in English beautifully. And I remember just sitting there like with my jaw on the floor or trying to hold it from dropping to the floor because it was unbelievable for someone as young as he is in his second season of professional baseball. His English is amazing. He works super hard at it. And everything I've heard too is that he's one of the hardest workers. He eats and sleeps baseball. And I mean, just a ton of raw talent. On top of that, too, this is really his first year as a full-time center fielder. He had played first base growing up, and he has not missed a beat out there. I mean, it's incredible, the reads that he gets, how much ground he can cover, and he's still, kind of learning the position. It's been a full year that he's been playing it, but he looks like a natural out there. So he's awesome, and I'm super happy that he has slipped into the top 100. I was at the gym last night when the tweet came out, and I was super excited for him. It was awesome.
All right. Well, one last player I have to ask you about while we have you is Tony Blanco Jr. I mean, how do you keep yourself from cackling when he makes contact? Because for people who don't know, Blanco might have the best raw power in the organization outside of O'Neal Cruz. I'm not talking about like just minor leaguers. I'm talking about like exit velocities 120. Like it's off the charts for single A, and it's nearly off the charts for the major leagues. I know he's got some swing and miss concerns and all that kind of stuff, but like what he's doing in the FSL is basically unheard of. What is it like to get a front row seat to that and try to announce and try to paint a picture for people of like just how hard he's hitting the ball?
Oh my goodness. It's unreal. Yeah, I think the only two players to hit a ball harder than him this year are Vlad and O'Neal Cruz. It's just so natural for him. I mean, my favorite part is like when you just see a little two hopper through the center of the diamond and you look at the research portal and it's like 112 just casually. He like mishits baseballs and they're still 105 plus. It's some of the most ridiculous power I've ever seen. That one week where he hit 118.9 and 119.8 was wild because the first one was like this high towering fly ball that cleared the entire building. One, to be able to produce those exit velocities, but do so and pull it in the air, I think is the most ridiculous part about it. And so that first one was 118.2, if I remember off the top of my head, something like that. And I remember being just like, what in the world is that even real? Right? Like you look at that and it just doesn't seem real. And then the next one was the walk-off homer in the ninth inning. And that was just like a rising line drive that like the boardwalk, kind of slapped down and cut it from its apex. And I remember thinking, I got to look at the research tool, but my tab wasn't open on it. And at the same time, they just erased a 4-run deficit in the ninth. And I'm just like, it's so exciting. And so as he's rounding third, I'm like, why not? All right, it's probably not 118 plus, but we'll take a look. And then I see 119.8. And again, I'm just like, what in the world? 4 days, 118 plus twice. Like you're in the category of Cruz, Guerrero, Ohtani, and so forth. It's incredible. And on top of that, too, I think he's shown some good discipline at the plate at times. He can hit the ball to all fields. He like the plate coverage yesterday. There was a slider that was probably 3 or 4 baseballs off the plate. And just with his wingspan, because he's so tall and has such long arms, he just pokes the ball off the end of the bat at like 98 still. And this pitch was in the left-hander's batter's box. So he's great. He's really fun, too, and a really nice guy. And he loves the game, obviously. And so I'm super excited to watch him.
All right, Max, one last thing before we let you go. I did some digging on you, and by that I mean I looked at the staff bio on the Marauders website. You're 24 years old, a young guy. Your favorite singer is Elton John.
Yeah, well, okay. So my music taste is all over the place. So when they asked me that to put that down, I was thinking really hard about it. I would say I chose Elton John because that's in my liked music on Spotify. The most songs of one artist I have is Elton John. But no, I love like a 70s, 80s classic rock. The first time I really started listening to Elton John was when the Rocket Man movie came out. And I remember like just going with a friend just because we wanted to see a movie. And I don't know what it was, but something clicked in my head and I love all of his music. So I don't think he's touring anymore, but that would be a really fun one to see on tour. And he's got the baseball connection too with the Dodger Stadium and everything. So yeah, he's great. I love anything from the 70s and 80s. I don't know what it is. I always joke that I grew up going to baseball games my whole life, and all the music they play at stadiums is 70s and 80s classic rock. And so like I think that just molded my music taste into enjoying anything from that era.
Can't go wrong. You're not going to get any disagreements from a old man like me. Anyhow, Max, thanks so much for joining us here on the show, and best of luck with what is really not much season left at all.
Yeah, that's right. 4 more games. Best of luck to you guys. It was great meeting you, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Hi, I'm Jim. I'm not an actor, just a guy living with prostate cancer. My wife and I face each day head on. We asked my doctor about Xtandi enzalutamide.
Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat starts swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache.
Visit Xtandi.com to watch my story.
Final segment of this week's episode of the show. Before we get out of here, it is time for an intercontinental edition, a trans-Pacific edition, a 13 time zone difference edition of Name That Dude, the game show craze that is sweeping the globe, in which this week Sam Dykstra is the dude knower, which makes me and Benjamin Hill the dude guessers. Sam, the floor is yours.
All right. This one, and I want to shout out the good folks at Defector who have done like a remember some dudes in linking up with Immaculate Grid. It's a lot of people have been posting some grids this week that have helped me remember some dudes and given me some fodder for some name that I can't remember if this guy popped up on a grid I saw. But anyways, I think he's a guy both of you will know. But he's not really talked about that much, I don't think, anymore. We'll see how this goes. So he was drafted in 1988, I believe out of JUCO, in the 51st round by the New York Yankees. 51st, did not sign, as one would expect. 2 years later, goes to another New York team out of Arizona State. He gets drafted by the Mets in the 9th round of the 1990 June draft. After getting drafted by the Mets in 1991, he plays for the Columbia Mets in the South Atlantic League, plays 129 games for them. Kind of guess where this is going now that this is a position player. 1992, splits his time between St. Lucie, which was then a high A affiliate, and Tidewater. He gets in 11 games with the Tidewater Tides. Now we know them as the Norfolk Tides, who were a Mets affiliate in 1992. 1993, Tidewater becomes Norfolk. He spends 73 games with the Tides then, but debuts. This is complicated now. Oh, I think he was a Rule 5 pick. I think that's what happened here. He was a Rule 5 pick, 1993, 24 games with the Seattle Mariners, then goes to Norfolk, gets returned to the Mets.
Right.
Interesting.
1994, 79 games with the Mets, 6 games with Norfolk. 1995, moves to the Milwaukee organization, 113 games with the Milwaukee Brewers in 1995, and then is pretty much a major leaguer the rest of the way. He's with the Brewers for 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. 2000, he joins the Cardinals. He's with the Cardinals for 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, and then spends his 835 season with the Detroit Tigers, 29 games, retires after 2004. There is some minor league time in there. I'm assuming these are all rehab assignments, but he's with Tucson and Stockton in 1997, and then Memphis for 5 games in 2003. I will say I think of him most. We've said a lot of teams in there. I think of him most as a Cardinal. That's your next
Think of him most as a Cardinal.
See, I'm sorry, Tyler. I think I have to remove myself from consideration because I was just blanking out and staring off into the middle distance, but Sam's screen was in my view as he started to type this.
Ben forgot what the game was there for a second.
Yeah, I was just blanking out. I was thinking about other things.
I think I have a guess.
I'll say one other thing about him real quick, just so we get some other bona fides out there about him, because I've just basically said the teams he's played with. He was a one-time All-Star for the Milwaukee Brewers in 1998, and he was a 2-time Gold Glover in 2001 and 2002 with the St. Louis Cardinals. Tyler, can you name that dude?
I think I have a guess. Is this a middle infielder?
It is a middle infielder.
Is this Fernando Vina?
That is correct.
Yes.
Amazing.
So Ben
Fernando
saw me type
Vina.
in Fernando, and
Could have been Valenzuela.
then decided to move away. Yeah.
He had to recuse himself. Fernando Vina, the thing I remember about Fernando Vina, I agree. Also, I would think of him as a Cardinal. The thing I think of with Fernando Vina, and now I have to pull up a picture of him to see if it is, basically what I remember. Yeah, just like a perfectly drawn on goatee. The goatee was just a strip, just a thin strip around, it looks like somebody just stamped the goatee onto Fernando Vina. Yeah, Fernando Vina, 56 years old now. Yeah, all right.
Fernando Vina,
that's good.
Career hits 1,196, 40 career homers, never hit more than 9 in a season, which if you remember Fernando Vina, you don't think of him for his power. Anyways, he was always kind of a short, stocky second baseman. But yeah, career 282 hitter. His OPS plus for his career was 89, so subpar. but again, 2 Gold Gloves in there, and the fact that he won 2 Gold Gloves in his 30s is telling that the glove certainly didn't age along with him. But yeah, I think when I really was following baseball daily was like started in 98, 99.
Yeah.
But I still would not have been able to tell you that he was a Milwaukee Brewer for that amount of time. He played more games for the Brewers than he did the Cardinals. 40 more games, 528 versus 488.
He also is on the baseball it's not like an infamy list, but he's on the he's the guy who got crushed by Albert Bell when he was trying to turn a double play.
Oh,
He's like on the other side of a highlight. Like he's the low light of the highlight, but he's in the second base line trying to turn a double play, and Albert Bell just annihilated Fernando Vina. And Fernando Vina like kind of popped up like he was gonna go at Albert Bell, and it was like nobody thinks you're gonna try to fight Albert. No one's going to fight. Mike Tyson would not have fought Albert Bell back then. But yeah, that was
he
like
popped up was pretty impressive.
yeah, that was extremely impressive. But yeah, that was even the YouTube headline, the title on YouTube of the official MLB video is Bell crushes Vina to break up double play. Like he just got destroyed. And there was a story apparently a couple years ago, he was on. Albert Bell was talking with Chris Rose on a podcast, and he said that he had actually warned Fernando Vina earlier in the game to not come into the baseline because of a similar play, and then Vina didn't listen, and Albert Bell destroyed him. He said, quote, I told him earlier not to come on the baseline because it happened on Eddie Murray's at bat a couple of innings before. Eddie Murray at the first at bat, he hits a ground ball to him. Vina comes to the baseline and tags me, and it caught me off guard. I was like, oh, don't do that again. Sure as blank. Eddie hits the same ground ball. I thought he was going to pitch it, and he came in and I knocked him down. And he said, I told you don't do it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Just 2 men standing their ground in the middle of the field,
And when you're on the receiving end of the contact from Albert Bell, unless you're an NFL lineman, you're probably not going to take it very well. Fernando Vina, incredible goatee, incredible 90s facial hair. All right, you guys. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. We got one more of the international variety coming up next week as the minor league regular season begins to wrap up across AA and AAA. And then, the culmination of seasons all over the place with champions to be crowned and all the rest. For Benjamin Hill, for Sam Dykstra, and all the rest, my name is Tyler Mon. You can get in touch with us, of course, podcast@milb.com. And thanks for tuning in to the show before the show. We'll catch you next week.